This is the Ethanol Report, the industry podcast from the Renewable Fuels Association since 2008. I'm Cindy Zimmerman. Well, summer's getting an early start this weekend as crappie anglers from around the country head to the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri for the chance to win some pretty big money. And the Renewable Fuels Association will be there promoting the use of ethanol fuel on the water. I'm speaking with RFA's Robert White. And Robert, first of all, tell us what you do for RFA.
Sure. Robert White. I'm the Senior Vice President of Industry Relations and Market Development and work a lot with market development in the petroleum industry, down with fuel retailers, and also on the industry relations side, all the way down with consumer education and other businesses with B2B relations.
Well, speaking of consumer education, one of the things RFA has done for many years is work to provide the facts about ethanol in marine engines to boaters and fishermen and anybody who's out on the water in a boat. And you've done that in many ways. But this weekend is a pretty exciting event. So tell us about that and how it will help educate about ethanol.
Sure. We've been promoting ethanol, E10 specifically, in marine engines for a number of years. National Boat Racing Association. We've done Crappie Masters. We actually are sponsoring someone in Major League Fishing that's doing bass fishing. And we have a crappie team as well. But this weekend is really exciting. There is the Big Crappie Challenge taking place at the Lake of the Ozarks, where the biggest crappie caught on Saturday and Sunday, the biggest fish of the weekend, will get $50,000. So they are expecting anglers from across the country to descend down onto the Lake of the Ozarks. There will be weigh-ins every 2 hours on Saturday and Sunday. But the biggest fish, the biggest crappie pulled out of the Lake of the Ozarks this weekend will get a $50,000 check. And so this weekend we will have 3 RFA-sponsored boats in the water. Our Kansas crappie team will be there. I'm actually going to be in the boat with the former owner of Crappie Masters, Mike Valentine. And then another boat will have a Missouri and a Kansan together, also sporting RFA colors. And our goal there is to remind folks that E10 is safe and obviously good for your boat motor, and that E15, E85, the other higher blends are good for your everyday vehicle. And there is a difference. And we have shown over the years that E10 works great in boat motors, and your tow vehicle can use the other fuels like E15. And these promotions have done great. You know, our competitors have placed high and shown off their ethanol bona fides from Florida all the way to California, and this week we'll be in the Midwest.
Why has this work targeting boaters and anglers been so important for RFA? I mean, you sponsored the Crappie Masters for years, where they actually had to prove they were using E10 in their engines in order to qualify for the tournament. So why have you continued to make this a priority for RFA?
Well, it goes back to the small engines. The off-road engines are a very small portion of the overall fuel usage in our country. But everyone that owns one of these motors, everyone that owns one of these boats or off-road vehicles or a generator or a lawnmower, they all own very expensive vehicles. And so if they'll put ethanol blended fuel into one of these engines, they will definitely put it into one of their bigger vehicles, because a lot of times these are the most prized possessions. But the rumors, the misinformation remains strong, especially in boats. You see ethanol free very prevalent around water, and especially in the coast around the oceans, or down in your area in the Gulf of Mexico, and even around the Lake of the Ozarks or up in Minnesota, where every gallon of normal fuel contains at least 10% ethanol. You still see ethanol free or recreational fuel. And the folks that are educated, they laugh and they scoff at people paying an extra dollar or even $1.50 a gallon more for ethanol free, because every marine engine manufacturer in this country, in their owner's manual, says you can use up to 10% ethanol without any issue. But the recommendation does say one thing: if you're not going to use your fuel within 60 days, you should stabilize it or drain it with or without ethanol. The recommendation is the same, even if you're using ethanol free. And the problem is routine maintenance seems to have gone out the window, definitely within the last decade. We have gotten lazy. We have for sure just changed the way we do routine maintenance and how we treat our engines, whether that's lawnmowers, boat motors, ski-doos, you name it. We just tend to put things away and we expect them to work when we pull them back out. And the fuel composition has changed drastically, and it's not just because of ethanol.
Yeah, that is key, and that's what we've run into, and that seems like that's where most of the misinformation has come from, is people not performing the routine maintenance and leaving gas in from what it sits around for 6 to 9 months sometimes, and you wouldn't expect it to work, I guess, after that. But how do you get that message through?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's reminding them of what their own manufacturer says. You don't have to believe the Renewable Fuels Association, the ethanol industry, or for sure Robert White. Pull out your owner's manual, go online, look at what Mercury Marine says about it. Evinrude, they all say the same thing. That up to 10% ethanol is good for your boat motor. That the recommendation for fuel storage and the maintenance schedule, it's all the same, whether you're using ethanol or 10% ethanol, or ethanol free and 10% ethanol. So I think it's important that you pull out the facts. It's the same thing we used to do with motorcycles at Sturgis. Use the facts. It's not something we're fabricating to sell more ethanol. We're just using the recommendations of the manufacturers, the people that actually built their equipment. Don't listen to the people that are trying to sell you some expensive additive. If you need to store your equipment for long durations and you're not going to drain your fuel, of course you need a stabilizer. But if you're going to use your fuel continuously, like a lot of these anglers are going to do this weekend or at the tournaments across the country, you do not need these expensive additives. But when it's time for storage, if you're going to leave the fuel in it, of course you need a stabilizer. But your other option is to drain the tank and get it ready for winter storage. But right now, it's time to break the boats out and get them ready for the summer.
Well, you mentioned a couple of other RFA angler sponsorships, and one of them is with a bass angler named Ryan Armstrong, and who scored a major victory earlier this year. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is our third year with Ryan Armstrong, an bass angler out of Illinois. He came to us from a recommendation, one of our board members out of Lincoln Land Energy, an ethanol producer in Illinois. And Ryan, has worked his way into the major league fishing. It's something you got to qualify for. There are various levels, even within major league fishing. And they started the year off in February in Florida, and Ryan came screaming out of the gates. He was the first place after day one. They kind of call it the dirty 30. You weigh in 5 fish, and you're trying to get that average of the 5 up to 30 pounds. And he almost did it on day one. He was several pounds ahead of everyone else. Day two weigh-in came, and he was still above everyone, and he won the tournament by almost 6 pounds. And it was exciting to see him hold that big check up with the fireworks going on behind him, RFA cap on, ethanol fueled with pride across his jersey. It's just one of those situations where all weekend, the live television crews, the publications covering bass angling was following him around and highlighting RFA sponsorship, that he was using ethanol in his boats. And Ryan, as he was holding that trophy, was highlighting that as well. Especially when you start off the year with that win, he's in the points race now. They had to cover that in all those publications and on the television shows. So sometimes you strike lightning in a bottle, and it was great to have that first tournament right out the gate.
Yeah, and that's nice that gives you this visibility among this target audience that you're going for. Now, this weekend is Dylan Falconer going to be in the tournament?
He is, along with his boat partner Alan, will also be there too.
They are sponsored then by RFA, right?
That is correct.
What are you going to do with the
Well,
$50,000 if you win, Robert?
Well, we'll find a home for it, and it'd be pretty exciting. I think Lake of the Ozarks is a huge lake. It'll be interesting to see how folks do as they spread across the water. The weather looks like it'll be beautiful. Start the morning in the 60s and crank on up into the 80s. So as anglers from across the country spread out, it'll be fun. There's weigh-in stations spread across the lake. I'm excited to be in a boat with someone that knows the area, and obviously, as a former owner of Crappie Masters, hopefully we can find some big fish.
So where does it start from at the lake?
You could be anywhere on the lake at 6 a.m. when it starts, and then there's 2 hour windows.
Huh.
And like I said, there are weigh-in stations all the way down near Warsaw, all the way up to the dam.
Because that's a big lake, so you can be anywhere on the lake. That's really interesting. Well, let's talk about summer coming up and summer driving and the fact that we've got a lot more E15 available. We did get the waiver out of the Trump administration to allow summer sales of E15, but just talk a little bit about what people planning their vacations can look forward to on the road as far as being able to fill up with a less expensive fuel.
Well, it's exciting. According to AAA and others, we expect the record miles traveled and record number of people traveling for Memorial Day weekend next weekend. And so we're excited to see how much E15 is used. And right now, E15 is averaging a little over a 7% discount to E10. So a lot of savings opportunities out there. Obviously, we have a record number of E15 stations across 33 states, and we're excited that we get to sell it through the summer months of June 1 through September 15th, thanks to those emergency waivers yet again this summer. Obviously, we want Congress to get E15 year round to the president's desk so we don't have to worry about this next year. But the good news is the retailers have some certainty through this summer, and that we can add more stations, add more or have more consumption, and like I said, have a cheaper product that will not only help the environment, in this particular case talking about water, but also keep the air clean as well.
What do you think the odds are that we might be able to have E15 for sale in California someday?
Well, the definitely the strongest support we've had in a long time, with Governor Newsom talking about it, the California legislature working on legislation that would kind of convince or force CARB a little bit, and hopefully the California Air Resources Board would actually have some movement to get E15 as an approved fuel. California being the last holdout, the market out there for E15 is huge. All signs point to California having new record high gasoline prices. You have refineries shutting down. You have the LCFS going to ramp up fuel prices again. I mean, it just all stars aligning to E15 being somewhat of a savior out there to lower fuel prices, especially in 2026 and beyond. It seems like the timing is just perfect for the fuel to debut in the state of California.
All right. Well, like I said, that's all the specific questions I have. But if people have more questions about using E10 gasoline, regular gasoline in boats, you have information on the website, right?
We do. Please visit ethanolrfa.org.
Right. And also information there if you're getting on the road and you want to know where the cheapest prices are, e85prices.com, right?
That is correct. We also have E15 stations listed there as well.
All right, very good. Well, thank you very much, Robert. And if you're on social media, you can follow Robert on Twitter, now X, at Fueling Good. That's his X name, Fueling Good. And he'll be providing updates from the Big Crappie Challenge this weekend. And again, you can go to ethanolrfa.org, and under events and initiatives, you can find out more about boating education and what RFA is doing in that area. And that's the Ethanol Report for this time. Thanks for listening.